are going to open the meeting right at 6:30. So this meeting is obviously being recorded and done virtually. Ryan, is there something you want to sort of state again?
Yes, so we have to continue, because this is a virtual meeting, to state the following. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Hubbardston Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at www.hubbardstonmass.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technology means. We posted this on the website and sent it out via social media well in advance of the meeting, and all of our meetings have the same ability to find the link and call-in numbers for every meeting. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post the town's on the town website an audio or video recording. This will be video, a comprehensive record of the proceedings, and that'll be tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. I do think it stinks that, you know, because we haven't really had anybody on yet. Nobody's gotten to that point yet where they're informed enough or feel comfortable enough to sort of join these meetings, which does stink, because not that we have, you know, droves of people in, but clearly we don't have any. So that hopefully that'll change.
So one thing, people are watching it definitely the next day on YouTube, because they go up quick, because I'm getting comments. So at least they have that ability, but I do agree.
Yeah. Okay, so no one's here for open session, or is anyone here for open session?
There's no one in the room.
Okay.
Dan, the last meeting we had a few attendees, didn't we? The last virtual meeting?
We did, because we were having announcements. So we had due to Katie's due to the frozen assets. So yes, we did, but they were gone pretty quick.
Okay.
So that was a little different, but yeah. Okay, well, announcements. Ryan, this will be you.
Just sharing, so no one freaks out. I'm sharing documents throughout this meeting. So the first announcement is just some, and we'll put this out on our normal channels, but some COVID-19 related cancellations. No surprise to anyone. We are following orders until May 4th and perhaps longer, and reevaluating certain events. Two of them that have definitely coming up this month are the Easter egg hunt, which is always very successful and well attended. So that's a shame. And Keep Hubbardston Beautiful, Laura Foley and crew do a great job with that. That's being postponed until a later time, but people are encouraged to clean up their areas, and she has been in contact with folks to encourage that. So as far as the townwide event, that is canceled at this point, as is the Easter egg hunt. And at some point, we're going to have to talk about the fair. I don't think we're there yet, but that's the next big event on the horizon that's going to need some consideration.
What's the date for that?
June, you would ask me that. It's the end of June.
Okay, all right.
So definitely some time.
Yeah, maybe she can think about social distancing if that's could work, at that, if it's still required at that time, maybe it could still go on,
Hopefully. I mean, that would be ideal. Okay, so the next thing, I'm sorry, I'm just bouncing around here.
Yeah.
Is the next thing for announcements is the Economic Development Committee is pretty excited to do a porch party sing-along. So this is something we're advertising on Saturday, April 11th at 6 p.m. So people are encouraged to get some takeout, sit on their porch using proper distancing. It's not a party except at your own house, but to sing along with some timed songs. So starting at 6, people are encouraged to go outside. We're going to have our public safety teams do sirens and just do some type of general announcement. And then in time, people are encouraged to sing along with the lyrics to songs that can be found on YouTube for the ones that are posted. We have flyers that can direct people to this, and we'll be pushing it out heavy this week. So they just wanted to bring some joy and cheer to the town. I think it's a good idea. I'm gonna do it from Dunstable. I'll look a little weird by myself, but I'm gonna
Well,
try
that's
and do
part
it.
of it, though. That's
I'm gonna
part of it
try
is
and
that Katie wants you to, not just you, but others, to take videos of it, to get it up, on the social media platforms, to help promote it.
so I'm hoping to get a video of every board member, and we can maybe splice it together into a music video. But I think it's a good way
now.
to bring some cheer. Then
We'll
the
do it
last
next
thing,
time.
the last thing is the Ragged Hill RFP. We've been, I know that's in the background right now, but that closes next week, April 13th at 4 p.m. It's a live open bid. I'm probably going to record it and have that available for you for selling those properties. We've had some interest. I've walked it with a couple people. So I'm hopeful that we'll get some strong bids for those 3 lots.
Any questions from any prospective bidders?
Yes, so a lot about the previous perk tests that were done, frontage, how buildable it is, and we made no promises. We gave as much information as we could without making ourselves liable. A lot of people want to know what to bid, and I told them as much as possible. So I do think there's some interest. I do think we'll get some bids.
Okay, and it was a while ago. We didn't put any minimums, right? I know we talked about that, so good. Okay.
Those lots are nice and flat. That's one of my positive points on those lots. Just nice and flat.
Very nice.
Okay, sounds good. And then, okay, so that's it for announcements?
Yes.
As far as presentations, we don't have any, so moving on to new business. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so we are here to talk about a number of things related to Lori's plans or informing us of what the plans are currently for the town relating to the town meeting, town election, and all that. So Lori, you have the floor. Welcome.
Hi, guys. So as you know, everything changes by the day. So as of today and the way things are going, my recommendation is to keep town meeting where it is. At this point in time, the furthest that we can extend it is only until June 30th. So that would only buy us 2 weeks of time to postpone it if we had to. Things could change, obviously, but this is where we're currently at now. So that's this is, where we should be going. Most people that are looking at postponing their town meetings are in March or April. So obviously they're a lot more affected by this at this point in time than we are. But we could be in the same situation, in June. So I'd like to have the town meeting go off as the date that we're looking at of June. Of course, I didn't write that down. I think it's the
Second.
Third. Okay, second. I don't know what will happen as far as, like I said, people in the room. I know that virtual town meetings are not acceptable just because there are amendments maybe that are made on the floor and, that they don't feel that, the state doesn't feel that everything could be captured from a virtual town meeting. Maybe if the weather's nice, we could have the town meeting outside. There's nothing that says that you can't have it out as long as you can get the presentation. So that's another option that we have. Town election's a little bit different because you have voting machines and things that you need to have secure. But we did vote the new voting machine and, you did that. So with the new one, it's a little bit less finicky, where we could maybe allow so many people to voting booths at a certain time, so many people in, we disinfect behind them if we have to. And, Sharpie markers can be used. So, we could either tell people to bring a Sharpie or, buy a big supply of Sharpies and then hand them out, and then everybody has their own. The tricky part with the town election is we've kind of held off a little bit. So we've cut about a week off of petitions. But getting petitions is a question, and it's not only, like I said, us, it's everybody's affected. So not to say good, but we're all in the same boat. So we're all learning together, and the town clerks are sending a lot of stuff out. So in order to be, on the ballot for a position, you need 20 signatures. With what they're recommending is to give, say, 25 nomination papers out. That way, in case you have a person that thinks they're registered to vote and they're not, that way you could capture 20 signatures and each person could get their own paper. You're not cross-contaminating with, 25 signatures on one paper. One person signs one, that's theirs, or a family signs it, that's it. And then you move on to the next paper. So you have, like I said, one paper kind of designated for a person where they could use their own pen, so you don't have to carry around information. A good way to collect signatures is you have people meet you outside. You give it to them, you leave it for them, and so, like I said, it's different, but unfortunately, it's the way that it is. So nomination papers. What I would like to do is I wanted to talk to you guys first, and then post the positions. There are 15. So there's quite a few open spots on there too. But if we can get people in, we can get the spots filled, that will be great. I could meet them in the parking lot. My guess is to, kind of meet by appointment, I think would be the best way to handle it. I'm very flexible on time. My schedule's not really crazy right now. So I could meet them, at night or morning or, a Saturday, and that's okay.
Lori, excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah.
You said 15. Are you talking about appointed positions as opposed to elected?
No, 15 elected positions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, there are some, obviously every position is important, but I can tell you that the 15, there's a Board of Selectmen spot, Board of Assessors, Planning Board, 2 Board of Health, 1 Quabbin Regional School District Committee, 3 Finance Committee, a Cemetery Commission, 2 Library Trustees, or 3, I'm sorry. No, it should be 2 Library Trustees, I believe, and 2 Park Commissioners.
Sorry to have this. So, all of us who have pulled papers in the past, like I know I went to a meat raffle once, next thing I know, there was 28 signatures on there, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to get people to do much right now because of all the restrictions in place, when people just have the widest range of personal opinions on everything, and so be it, right?
Right.
So has there been any talk of extensions on any of this stuff, or it feels like there's extensions on lots of stuff you're continuing to shake, so no mention of any of that yet, so we're just
Not yet. Not as of right now. Not, like I said, the latest that it could be postponed is to June 30th. Which 2
To
weeks.
that point, but that particular point, and to your point, Dan, I'm remembering, I thought from what I read from Governor Baker's and that's the legislature easement on certain regulations and requirements so that municipal towns, et cetera, can conduct business, et cetera. I thought I had read that it can go beyond the 30th. God forbid that it should have to do that, and that then the power would vest with the select board and the town administrator. As I remember reading, we would be allowed, for example, since we couldn't get a budget approved, maybe to spend it up to 1/12, I think, of what the budget was in the previous year. Am I correct in that, Ryan?
So,
Should
yes,
it have to go beyond
but
the fiscal year?
it hasn't gotten to that point yet.
Ryan didn't hear that? Okay.
Oh, I did. I'm waiting. So,
Well, another reason I mentioned it is, the other reason I mentioned it is to Dan's question. Dan, one of those, they may have either regulations so that we, in fact, as a board and a town administrator, could postpone the elections because they're local to, a later date. I don't recall that, but is that something that we might be able to do?
so the answer to that is we can, as Lori said, we can postpone both the town meeting and the election, but only at this point until June 30th. So our election is June 9th. So you could move it back 2 weeks, but that might lead to the potential of having to move it twice, or it might be much easier to run it by the time it gets to the 9th. So they are not allowing us to do things yet although they're saying that they're talking about the ability to do things like a 1/12 budget and elections, right now we do not have the authority to move it any further than June 30th.
All right, so let's talk about, we hear about it every year. I should know it by now, but I don't. So there's like a drop dead date when we have to send things out, notifications to residents about town meeting. That date prior to town meeting is how many weeks?
I think, is it 20 days or 2 weeks, Ryan?
I don't.
I'm calling up the document right now just so we can have a definitive calendar.
Last date of post warrant is 14 days prior to the election, per our bylaw.
So these
That
are the
apply
dates.
also for town meetings?
So these
That
are the
is, that
dates
would count for town meeting.
that we did have in place. So on May 11th, we were to sign it, send it to the printer, as we do mail our warrants still. It had to be mailed by the 19th, a minimum of 2 weeks prior, posted by the 18th.
All right, we'll just keep this on the agenda.
Yeah, everything seems to be changing daily anyway, so. Lots gonna change probably in the next week and a half.
Right, so, but for nomination papers to go out and to give people a reasonable amount of time to do it, that's, like I said, this is what I was talking about, like, we're in a now, you know, and it could change tomorrow, you know, I mean, we've seen so many things change within days, you know, but I'm just trying to give the best information that I can for today, you know,
With,
can-
with,
you know, I've already been looking up of ways too that, you know, where the meeting would be basically opened by the moderator, the board of selectmen, you know, everybody would be there. Then what would happen is we would vote to continue the meeting, you know, so but we're not there yet, you know, so there are things in place for if that does happen. Hopefully it doesn't. But again, I mean, I can't predict the future. I wish I could, because, you know, I mean,
I'd like to suggest people that want to run too, that they could do a write-in campaign.
right.
Yeah.
So again, we could limit the number of people per state law, but we have a bylaw in place which wipes that out. Per state law, you only have to have a town election for 4 hours. But in our bylaws, we say that we're open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So the fact of, or the idea of cutting it short doesn't really work. But what the state is allowing us to do is send out absentee ballot applications, which I don't know if any of you had gotten one before or requested one, but there are certain provisions of why you can or cannot get an absentee ballot. Basically, you can't be in town the same, you know, at the time if you're out of state traveling or whatever it may be. But now what they're doing is they're doing a like no questions asked absentee ballot. So if people don't feel comfortable voting on the day of election, but they want to cast their ballot, then what we could mail them a absentee ballot application. They could vote, or I could do appointments again. They could come in, they could vote, and so that would help, you know, reduce traffic on the day of, if that was an issue. If this is an issue, then. Again, with signing, you know, you have people meet you in the parking lot, you meet you at the park, you know, you call people. It's going to be calling people or texting people instead of, you know, just seeing them at the grocery store. You know, there are a few businesses in town still that are open. You know, the senior center does eggs or vegetables, you know, you could stand outside or, you know, whatever. So I know it's not easy, but unfortunately it's the way that it is.
Okay, well, I think we've covered everything there, and I appreciate the update, Laurie.
Yep.
And we'll be talking soon.
Okay, if you need anything
Take
else, let me
care
know.
of yourself.
Yeah, you too. So I'll send out some email blasts that will say that nomination papers are available in the positions, and we'll go from there. Tomorrow's a
Sounds
new
good.
day.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye. Okay, cool. Next is the COVID-19 response and safety measures update, which we receive regularly from Ryan, but you want to give us a status update, Ryan?
So there's just one more thing in the town meeting stuff. The town meeting warrant, the board voted to close it today. And a lot of the committees and residents have been asking for more time. So I'm recommending that the board extend the warrant deadline until your meeting at the end of this month, which is April 27th. So what that would mean is we'd need to do back-to-back meetings in early May to go over the warrant, finalize it, saying that we're going to have town meeting and everything continues. It's going to push it off to the left, or to the right, but it'll allow more time for people to submit articles.
So I'll make the motion to extend the warrant deadline to April 27th.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion? All in favor? Yes.
Roll call or what?
It has to be roll call. Yep.
And yes, Jeff,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
unanimous?
Okay. And to get to what Dan was talking about, I'm going to share the screen one more time here. Okay, so if folks go to the homepage, the Hubbardson, www.hubbardsonma.us, this, and I know the board knows this, I'm just talking to the people might be watching. Go to this red banner, it appears on every page on our website, so you can't escape it. This is, we post the latest information, I put the time so that people know when it was updated. There's some important information here about numbers of cases, and I'll get to that in a second. The local state of emergency, it was declared by the board. And this document here, which is our up-to-date responses and as much information as we can give folks. So this changed recently. I just wanted to update the board and the public. So we've closed all municipal buildings to match the governor's stay-at-home advisory and the closure of non-essential businesses. And that's true in Hubbardston as well, until May 4th. When that will be reevaluated again. That is also the date that school is closed until at this time. Other updates from on this document in terms of safety measures for our employees. We did a full cleanse of the Slade building, the library, police, DPW. That was an electrostatic spray that kills 99.9% of viruses, basically hand sanitizing everything with a fog, which should help alleviate or at least reset those buildings. There's minimal traffic in there, so we've also have Jerry, our town custodian, cleaning all the touch points a couple times a week and making sure that everything is deeply cleansed, especially things that are touched a lot. And then we did a deep cleaning at the fire department. They're bringing stuff in and out. They're interacting with people who are sick, so they asked for sort of a deep clean rather than a fogging. And we were able to execute that for them as well. And then employee spacing. So this has been a focus at the police, fire, and DPW. They're all still working. They're all working full time, but we've implemented staggered shifts, making sure that people aren't sharing vehicles, making sure that they're properly spaced. The reason for that is not just an abundance of caution, but also if one of them gets sick, they're likely to infect their peers and then everybody else. So just making sure that they're as safe as possible. That's allowing them some time, extra time to clean and to make sure that they're using the same equipment, and they're the ones who are in and out and cleaning that to the best of their ability. We're giving them plenty of time to do that. The seniors, the only thing that's changed for senior services is the distribution of eggs from the country hen, and some produce, when it's available, is delivered now on Friday instead of Thursdays. And the senior population has been made aware of that. And then a couple good news items, because a lot of this is not good news. We've had some successful building permit inspections that were done by FaceTime, which I think is pretty cool. So when possible, our inspectors are meeting with people virtually, not compromising safety, but when it's possible, so that people can continue their projects and continue the growth in this town. And then our virtual story time, the Hubbardston Public Library has been hosting twice a week virtual story time. And it's been very successful, 50 to 150 views per video, lots of people commenting on it. Our storytime personnel, Miss Michelle, she is going to drop down to doing one of those a week, but that is allowing some of us town officials to do some. And of course, if the board wants to join in on that, they can. So anybody that wants to volunteer to do a virtual story time, we'll throw that in the mix as well. Those are the updates pending your questions. concerns.
I don't have any. Anybody else have any questions? I think you've been doing a great job.
It's basically what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Okay, well, that's thanks for the update. Next we have is 4C. I guess before we move on though, Ryan, there are a couple things on in our handouts that have 4B on them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Good call. Let me call those up for you. It's a good time to see these. So I'm going to share my screen again. First, I want to make sure no one's jumped in the room. They have not. Okay, so this first screen is, and before anyone panics, these are, you can see the highlighted sections I'm moving in. So these are anticipated costs in excess of what we thought we would spend because of COVID-19, if that makes sense. So COVID-19 related expenses that may go above what was appropriated at last year's town meeting. So by law, you're not allowed to go above your appropriation except during a state of emergency. So we've declared a local state of emergency. The state is in a state of emergency. And we had to submit this sheet to the Department of Revenue in case we were going to go over what we said we were going to spend. One note on that is we don't necessarily expect to go over what we spent because our departments do a good job of being fiscally conservative, and we have some conservative estimates in our expenses. So we may be able to cover a little bit, some of these or all of these additional expenses, but we wanted to make sure that we had the ability to spend money if we needed to, because a lot of these are what we're deeming essential. So the way this breaks down is
Because of the state of emergency, Ryan, will any of this be supposedly returned to us by the state or the federal government?
so that's a good question. We've been advised, not yet to be official, but that many of these costs will be absorbed or at least reimbursed in some manner, whether partial or full, because of the federal and state commitment to making sure that we're continuing to pay our employees, continuing to provide services, and continuing to keep people safe. So I know that this is probably going to happen. I feel comfortable saying that because they're doing the same thing for local businesses. You can apply for loans that turn into grants if you're willing to pay your employees still and function as a business. Why would the government do that? The reason why they're doing it is because if employees stay tethered to businesses, they're hoping that the recovery on the other end of this will be faster. So that filters down to we're also an employer and a corporation. I do believe there'll be assistance for us. It has not come out officially. We haven't seen any money yet, but we're capturing all of these COVID-19 related expenses like we would do in any emergency with the hope and the possibility that we will get assistance from the federal or the state government.
There's 36,000 of that is the police, right there, according to this, right?
That is the majority of the expense, is the
Yep.
guaranteed 2-officer coverage. This is a conservative number. The rest of it is sanitation services, adding some time for our emergency management director, which is Dennis O'Donnell. And then in this initial month, we had to add some things to people's computers and buy some additional cleaning supplies to function.
Ryan,
So
go ahead.
So this 41,000 approximate is a conservative number, as I said. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to spend that much, but it is an approximation of what we might need to go through this May 4th stay-at-home advisory.
Does the police, obviously the rest of them are, they're small in comparison. We're talking every one of them less than 5% of or so of that one. Does that the police coverage, so does that ever have more than 2 officers, like during the day? Like, how does chief work into this?
So we have Chief Perrin and then 2 officers during the day, and then 2 officers guaranteed at night.
Okay. Do we need that many during the day, you think?
So that's a question that I would want Chief Perrin to answer. I'd want to bring him on and have him answer coverage, or I can get that answer from him. But this is what he requested from me and the Board of Selectmen in terms of coverage he believes it's needed for the town.
I think, I kind of agree with you, and Ryan and I briefly touched on this earlier. I think this really needs to be looked at, considering the financial restraints we're on now and what's going to be coming in. We're not guaranteed what percentage of this is going to be reimbursed, so I think it's a logical thing to look at to see if we can adjust any of the however many officers we have on at one time. And it's a good question to have the chief answer.
So my recommendation to the board is that that this configuration be tentatively approved through the stay-at-home order ending on May 4th. We said originally that we would look at it through the state of emergency and hoping things would change. But if this does extend farther, obviously the financial impact without any guarantee that this money would be reimbursed would be very strong to the town. So I think there should be recommendations made or options that you could pick from or hear about so that you could make this decision.
Well, okay, so your recommendation is that we don't make any decisions for a month.
I wouldn't change anything this second, but you can certainly get additional information for your next meeting, or if you want to call another emergency meeting to discuss it, to see what different configurations would be and what that might mean in terms of coverage to the town.
Let's do that. Let's not set a meeting or anything, but if you could do that, we're just doing our jobs here as far as I'm concerned. So if we could just sort of see, have that question posed and see what other options there might be on that, then that can be distributed by you to all of us for us to take a look at, and then we can sort of go from there. All right?
Yes, and this was, as you know, this information evolves. This is our initial reaction, our reaction to the emergency. Never meant to be necessarily sustained, but I do have to say that our police have been responding to some not good things that it's not always easy to see, but there is additional calls for problems in households and for mental health that would benefit from additional coverage. So it's not just a matter of from want, it's also needed in many cases, and I'd like the impacts of that to be heard before decisions are made.
Well, those are the sorts of things that'll be on the responses of us asking the questions. So, we can sort of go from there.
And then I wanted to show along the same lines, this document, just for the board, has some edification that we have requested this from DLS and gotten approval for all the expenses. Every expense that we put up was deemed appropriate because of the emergency response. This isn't saying go ahead and spend that much money or you should spend that much money. It's saying you're allowed to if you need to.
Okay.
And that's important. You need this pre-approval before expending. So we are good on that sense.
Was this like a same day response you got?
It was, yeah. I'm not saying that we are under responding, but there are towns that are in just being crushed by this virus right now in terms of the police and fire coverage that they need. Changes to insurance, changes to costs with buildings, et cetera. Just bigger towns, as you can imagine, need a bigger response. So our request was kind of seen as a no-brainer to them. That's why it happened so fast. Yeah,
Okay.
Same day.
Okay. So I think those are the other 4B items. Is there one more there?
We have people home right now. So we're working really hard to get our vacancies clarified and what's available, because we think some people might want to volunteer right now. So we're going to take advantage of that and bring that to you, some boards and committee vacancies, and start advertising to try and get, we don't have too many positions, but there's a couple open and we need to get them filled.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. All right. So once again, that line item is going to stay there for a while, I'm sure, the COVID-19 response and safety measures update. So, okay, so moving on to item 4C, which...
Dan, I'm sorry. We're getting this question a lot. It's in my note right here to not miss this. We do have multiple cases in town of COVID-19, several. So we are no longer posting the one new case or what case is there. This is guidance from Mass Department of Public Health, from FEMA, MEMA. It's so as to not cause fear and panic. But I do want people to know that we are tracking every single case of COVID-19 through our Montechusett Public Health Network nurse, which monitors for infectious disease reporting on a system called Maven. And every time we get a positive, all of the known contacts are contacted by this public health nurse. Anything we need to do to mitigate is done. And then follow-ups are done with each person as they're recovering in their home. So this has impacted many people in the Hubbardston community. And there have been some contacts or some potential contacts that we've had to mitigate throughout town and on our staff. So we are addressing every case. We are monitoring every case. We are not reporting the numbers, and that is intentional, but we are not hiding any information. I want to make sure people know what we're doing in order to combat this in our community. And also let people know that it is in our community and that they should be following the guidance from CDC, the state, and this Board of Selectmen on staying home and only doing essential services and taking care of their families at this time, and social distancing when they do need to come out of their house.
Okay. Hey, one other thing I was going to mention this. So does anyone else get from the Haywood Healthcare from the president, it says president at Haywood, the coronavirus morning update?
Yeah.
No,
That's-
I don't.
Okay.
Don't.
I mean, it's, I don't know, Ryan, do you get that?
No, I'd love to though.
Every single day, literally every day it comes, it says how many we've tested, how many positives, how many negative, what's the rate, and then total specimens statewide, number of virus detected, the percent positive, how many deaths, how many in Worcester County, how many in Franklin County, literally every day. So it's sobering.
Did you say he was actually testing? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Oh,
Anyway,
Jeff, comes on the Gmail, in your Gmail account. Your Gmail email. From Haywood.
anyway, that was it. So
And then because I'm monitoring, and I'm sorry to keep cutting you off, Dan, the chat, because people can't see the chat. So Jamie asked a couple questions. We've had supplies dropped off by the National Guard. That's true. That was organized through MEMA. They came and Chief Perrin's done a good job requesting from everybody and then redistributing it through the town, especially to fire. So that was nice of the Guard and MEMA to answer the call for us. And then increases in crime. He said, could we get numbers and different statistics on increases in crime? That would definitely be a part of a report you would get in terms of what is needed and why. So those numbers would be in there. I don't have them now though.
Okay, thanks. I think we're going to move on. So now we are new business item 4C, which is the long-awaited town administrator 2-year evaluation.
All right, I'll just hide.
You should. So, hey, so the way we're going to do this, we did this last year. No one is required to say anything, but we're each going to be given our opportunity. I'll start just because I am already speaking. But what I can do is we each did a 2-year evaluation. This will be our third for Ryan. We did a 6-month, a 1-year, and a 2-year. I'll just start us off here. So I'm just going to explain to anyone who's listening first of how this works. So there are a series of questions with a rating that we're all to provide. These are available, I think, on the town website. Is that right, Ryan?
The employee evaluation forms,
Is the form from last year or any of that? No?
they're available publicly if people want them, and I can put them up if you
Whatever.
want me to.
Okay, so I'm not necessarily trying to make a nightmare for you, but there are 11 questions, and they have to do with all different parts of employee evaluation, quality of work, job knowledge, all that sort of stuff. And then there's a rating system from 1 to 3 to 2 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 8, and 9. Then you do a total amount at the end, and you divide it by that to get a final score. And then there's a comment piece. So I'll just sort of start us off. So my rating, going sort of straight to that, was overall performance rating of 7.9. which is commendable performance. The highest is a 9, and that's distinguished, and then 7 to 8 is commendable performance. And what that definition of commendable is: consistently generates results above those expected of the position, contributes in a superior manner to innovations, both technical and functional. So this just happens coincidentally to be exactly the same score that I gave last year, although my numbers were very different. I didn't look at my previous one, and so some of the items went up, some went down, but the overall was 87 total points divided by the 11 questions, got to a 7.9. And just real briefly on some of the comments I had, and I'm not going to read all these by any means, but just, this overall, I think, explains how I evaluated, Ryan's second year, and then our expectations of him. So, Ryan has shown consistent growth as a leader and administrator since the moment he began the position. My overall evaluation score was identical to last year's, which upon reflection is due to the fact that with a longer amount of time in the role, or any role, there is a greater expectation for performance. So Ryan has sustained the growth initially shown in his role as TA in his first year and has further built on that growth in year 2. So basically what I'm saying is yes, the building of growth has gone basically linear with the amount of time he's had in the position to gain additional knowledge. So we expect more when we've had somebody not only in that position, but in our town for a longer period. And that's what we've had. So I have, there were a number of other comments sort of on there, but overall, I am, sort of happy with how things have gone, and sort of proud of the way he's sort of taken our town as, into his own. And, hope, like I always say, that A, he sticks around for as long as he can, and B, he does better in the 5K this year. So anyway, so I was first. If anyone wants to go next, please.
I'll jump in.
Okay, so Jeff, you're next.
Yeah, okay. I'll just concentrate on the comments because I think a lot of this is going to be duplicated by all of us. My evaluation ended up as an 8.1, and under the comments I made, I praised him in terms of hands-on involvement with all the departments and their employees. I complimented him as being very organized, a very good communicator to all of his departments as to what he expects from them. He respects everyone, and they in turn have returned the respect to him. He continues to recognize employees in the TA report to the Board of Selectmen for their performances in carrying out their jobs. And one of the things that I was most impressed with for this particular evaluation is I said visibility to the town I thought is exceptional. Doubling down on what you said, Dan, is that he is always out there. He's with the people, visiting businesses, talking to the people. He attends the town events, brings his family. One would think he lives in Hubbardston, but he doesn't. All of this makes the town administrator, to me, is more than just the title of someone who works for the town. He makes the position very human, and I think it's important, especially in a small town where so much is known by everybody. So I compliment him on that. In terms of how he's improved over the past 2 years, I commend him on the seminars and meetings and everything else he has done to better his skills and knowledge. The things that we've asked for over the last 2 years in terms of where we wanted him to be better, etc. He has more than done that. Finally, in the end, I said he sets very high goals for himself and he achieves them. And then I finally said he's a great self-motivator.
Okay.
Was I talking to nobody?
No, you're talking to everyone. Appreciate it.
Is anybody there?
Yeah, we got you, Jeff.
Wow.
We heard it all.
Did anybody hear that?
Yeah, we heard you, man.
Did anybody hear it?
I'm gonna mute him.
Oh, okay. Good. All right.
We heard you. Okay, so Jeff can come back and chime in after. I think he was done anyway. Jeff, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm done. Yep.
Oh, good. Sounds good. So anybody else want to speak to this?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to agree with I give him an overall performance rating of an 8, which I believe is similar to what I gave him last year. I think he's doing a fine job. Obviously, as with anyone, there's always room for improvement, but he's done a heck of a job, and look forward to working with him for about 20 more years.
Oh, Pat's gonna do this for 20 more years? Sweet.
No, just
Oh no,
Ryan.
oh no.
You commit, I'll commit.
I just saw walking out the doors, Dan.
All right. Thanks, Pat. Anyone else?
No, I got a noisy pellet stove in the back. I typed in my comment. Did everybody read it? I did it to everybody.
Yeah.
Did it come up on your screen?
Haven't-
Did you
didn't
see
see
it,
it.
Ryan? Just said you're a great town administrator, very happy with your performance, great leader, and like everyone else said, another 10 or 20 years. Keep it up.
Sounds good. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to let Ryan know that I think he's doing a good job so far. I mean, everything I see, I like. Obviously, I haven't been around the situation as long as you folks have. So I really don't have anything to compare it to, being a second year. But from what I'm seeing so far, I think he's doing a great job. And, you know, I think it reflected in my performance appraisal of him. He has it in hand. I think my numbers are close to the ones you folks are mentioning. You know, and I gave him a good review, and I think he should keep up what he's doing, and you know, just keep on keeping on. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for growth. I think Ryan grasps that concept, and I think he's doing that by going to the seminars and doing the outreach and meeting with the town and getting to know his constituency. And if he just keeps on doing that, I think we'll be happy to have him as long as he's around.
Great. Well, so I do have just in closing, I guess, and you guys can close too. But so, you know, I do have, I did, you know, indicate a couple things where, you know, I think there is room for improvement, you know, some sort of within control and some without. So exactly to that point, Chris. So procurement was one of the big things that that Ryan had put on his lists, one of his lists previously, to get you know, better is the wrong word, but just more comfortable with, you know, and I think he has, and he sort of indicated that as well. But you know, what I indicated in the evaluation was we're overall we don't have that many opportunities because we don't have enough money to buy enough stuff, really, you know, procurement wise. So it's hard to get. You know, there's so many intricacies legally and other ways within procurement, which is really important for our town and can be specifically if something goes bad. So that's one of the things that, even though the comfort level might have been increasing, was basically to make sure that is that he didn't think, or that you don't think, Ryan, that and I know you don't, but that you know it all about that, because there's so much more to sort of understand that. To protect us there's you know, this sort of wealth of knowledge that sort of needs to be there to make it so that, you know, bad case scenarios don't cripple us. So that was one of the comments I had on something to not get better at, but just get more familiar with and more experience with. So there was that, and then the only other really area requiring improvement that I put on there was, you know, we've heard over the last, I think it's probably, I'm just going to make a number of months up because I don't even know what month it is right now. But we've you know, rekindled the conversation about buildings, right? I guess I'll just put it at that, or community infrastructure. And, you know, I think we can, or I could see, you know, the enthusiasm level from Ryan on you know, what we should have, right? Meaning in a perfect world. And you know, I think that my recommendation was a little bit to pull off and pull away from that sort of macro what we should have, and because you got to understand what the people of Hubbardston will go for, what they won't go for, what they need to hear, timelines, things like that. So basically just paring it down a little. And again, we hadn't finished the conversation on this yet, so it's not really like necessarily a criticism, but maybe it's more than anything, it's a recommendation forward on the way forward too, on some of that too. But what we'd sort of seen till date was more of, sort of the initial portion of it, where it's just, one of those dope slap, yep, we need this, yep, we need that, yes, we need this, yeah, that's the sort of thing that, yep, is probably true, but, needs other layers into it as well. So, okay, anyone else, anything else? No? All right. Okay, well, it's all downhill from here.
I could respond just briefly.
Of course.
It's up to you. Okay. It's up to you. I got to stop.
No, I didn't know.
So first of all, I really appreciate the support from the board. I know that you hired me as a person with potential, so I take that very seriously. I knew I could do it, but I can see where maybe you thought, I'd have to prove it. So I try every day. I love my job. I love the people I work with, and again, I just appreciate the support and all the initiatives. And that doesn't mean that everything I say gets done or every recommendation. That's not my job. My job is to lay out options to you and to help you make decisions about the future of the town. So appreciate that from the board. I don't do much. It's my staff that does everything. I coordinate, right? Like a maestro, I guess, but it's the staff that executes the vision. It's the staff that gets things done every day. It's the staff that meets all the deadlines. So thank you to my staff. If I could say one thing to the town, it's that you have an incredible staff of people here that are willing to work in the worst conditions possible to make sure that everything continues to run. They do things for people that are way beyond their job descriptions. And that's, if I've had any successes, it's because of that. In terms of sticking around for 20 years, if all of you stick around for 20, I'm with you. So we'll say that. I've been very honest in saying that I enjoy working here. I don't have, I plan on staying here as long as you want me, or unless my commute could be less, less than an hour in some reasonable fashion, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. So I'm very comfortable working in Hubbardston. I love the people. I love the challenges that are here, and I'm committed to this town. So that's not something to worry about.
There's a couple of house lots for sale on Ragged Hill, Ryan, you can look into.
I would end my career if I did that, but I did think about it. So
Jamie lowballed him though, so don't.
Not a conflict at all if I'm videotaping myself buying those lots, and just to, I'm not going to say much more, but just the idea of coordinating. This town has done, and I've read every document I could and talked to as many people as I could. This town has a plan for itself, and it just needs to continue to drive forward. And that's really hard to see in the middle of a pandemic, or in the middle of the budget crises, or in the middle of everything that the town has to do. But I'm happy to help move this town forward. It's in much better shape than a lot of the towns around it. And even though, when you're in a town, you don't necessarily see that, but this town has a tremendous amount of potential, and it's great to work in a place that has that. So thank you very much. I've taken the feedback. I'm much harder on myself than you guys are on me. So I look forward to the next year, hoping to do more things.
All right, that's great. So we forgot to tell you there's a post-pandemic evaluation as well. So.
Okay, great. Not many people are going to want to do these jobs post-pandemic. So.
Okay, well, that's that. I guess that's it. If anyone has anything else, please chime in. If not, then we'll move on. Okay. All right. So item 4D back on here is the host community agreements for the adult use marijuana establishments. We dealt with retail last time, and we're back to cultivation. So you want to set the table for us, Ryan?
Yes, and I'll call up this agreement here. So the board, where we were last week in this conversation, or 2 weeks ago, so the board approved the retail host community agreement. Again, a host community agreement is if you're going to do these things in our town, here's what you need to do or what we need to agree on in order for that to happen. There is, these establishments are allowed to come into the town because of the bylaws and the state laws that allow it. But each town has the ability to negotiate prior to an adult marijuana establishment coming in. That's what this HCA is. So the retail one is done and signed from your votes and input last time. We talked about 2 sticking points at our last meeting for cultivation, and those were establishing what the 3% community impact fee would look like in terms of minimums, and then if there would be any community benefit payment with that. So that's one piece of it. The next piece was, and follow me, the transfer of cultivated marijuana from one business, when they transfer it to the same business in a different location that does retail sales. It's a little gray as to what's allowed there, if anything, because it could in some cases be considered a double tax, according to some. So since there's no guidance legally on what that would be, the agreement before you, Damon and the groups he represents have agreed to pay $30 a pound for each one of those transfers, regardless of what the market is. Their position is that they don't have to pay that at all, but they're agreeing to pay for it out of goodwill and good faith. So the agreement before you has those contingencies ironed out. We have come to an agreement, the negotiation team, myself and the lawyers, and looking for your input or any changes or anything you want to do with it going forward.
I could jump in because personally, with everything I've read that you've sent us, et cetera, including the agreements and the selectmen that I saw your comments on, I think everybody seems to be feeling that we're so close to a deal right now and we all want revenue, et cetera. My feeling is the things we've already agreed on, et cetera, and your recommendation that you'd recently sent us is that we go with that and get this project moving so that we can begin to see the other side of it.
Yep. Agreed. Ryan, would you, I'm not going to speak for you, Ryan, but was it your recommendation? Would you call it that?
So just to explain it, because it's very complicated, and I know the board understands this, but the 3% community impact fee, we are saying if you bring marijuana to the Hubbardston community, there will be a 3% impact on our budget, meaning we have to spend more money because marijuana is coming here. And I do believe that's true. There's going to be some costs, some police costs, some road costs. There's going to be some impacts because this new business is here. What the companies are saying is anything above that 3% you try and charge us is against the law. And they're agreeing to a minimum, which means they're saying that we're willing to go above what we're supposed to in order to sign this agreement. So that's a good thing. The second part of that is they could, by definition, say you can only charge us what it costs you for us to bring us in here. But instead of doing that, they're saying we'll pay you the full 3% for 5 years. So I think that is a good deal for the town. I think it's definitely going to be further legislated in the next 5 years. And things may change, but for this particular agreement, my recommendation is that this is a good deal for Hubbardston.
Agreed. Anyone else have anything they want to say on this?
I agree.
Totally agree.
All right. So are these in form to be able for us to make or have a vote on all of them at once?
Yes, one sticking point, because there's always one sticking point, is I'm going to call this up so you can see it. So we're talking about the same thing. So you would be voting on, you can see on the agenda here, this outdoor and indoor cultivations. That's one agreement. Okay, that is the things we are discussing. in terms of this product manufacturing, right? So this is also going to happen at 56 Gardner Road. The only difference in this manufacturing agreement, because each one is a different agreement. So we already signed one and then there's 5 more here, even though they're on 2 properties. Each type of establishment gets its own agreement. The difference in this manufacturing one is they are not agreeing to a minimum. They're only going to pay 3% of the community impact fee, which I asked about this. I actually talked to the, on both sides of the negotiation table. They're just saying that this is an additional product that may or may not happen, and they don't want to commit to a minimum there because it's just not something that's done. So I am comfortable recommending that this HCA does not have the guaranteed minimum that may or may not be allowed by law anyways. So each one of these would have to be voted individually. You can do it in one motion, but they all have to be addressed.
So you can group A, B, C, and D in one motion, is that what you're saying?
Yes, but you'd have to read each line in part of the motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion if it's okay with everybody else. Leaving out the E part, correct? That would take a separate motion itself, right?
I would do that to be clean, but you can do the first 4 together as long as you
Yeah.
read each one.
Okay, I move that we accept the host community agreements for the adult use marijuana establishments. A, Royalston Farm LLC, proposed outdoor cultivation facility at 69 Gardner Road. B, Paper Crane Provisions LLC, proposed outdoor cultivation facility at 69 Gardner Road. C, Paper Crane Provisions LLC, proposed indoor cultivation facility at 69 Gardner Road. And D, Paper Crane Provisions LLC, proposed indoor cultivation establishment at 56 Gardner Road.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion?
Yes, I just had a question. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
On A and B, I'm sorry, A and B, those outdoor cultivations, those may only be, am I correct that they may only be 1 year, the outdoor grow?
So that's what, in his presentation at the community outreach hearing, that's what Damon said. He wants to try a one-year outdoor grow.
Okay,
what-
so those won't be big money makers. It's going to be the indoor, the C and D.
I would be a little hesitant to say, just because if it's successful, I don't think he's going to stop.
Okay. Okay, that's all.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, Dan, yes. Jeff?
Yes,
Jamie?
Yes.
Chris?
Aye.
Pat?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Jeff?
take another motion for the host community agreements for adult use marijuana establishments. E, Paper Crane Provisions LLC, proposed product manufacturing establishment at 56 Gardner Road.
I'll second that.
Discussion. So I have a question, Ryan. So you just talked about because this is different in the product. So there's no concern that they can slide in a different type of process into this agreement, right? You know what I mean? Did I word that correctly?
You did, and I've been learning with you guys on this as well. So what we're agreeing to here is everything that the state regulates plus the stuff that they need to agree to for the Hubbardston side. So if the state doesn't allow it, then they can't do it just because of this agreement, if that makes you feel better. So the state regulates what they can do, not us. So they can't sneak anything new that's not already allowed in, if that makes sense. If the state approves it, they could, but we can't.
Okay. Any other further discussion? No? Okay, we'll take a vote. Dan, yes. Jeff?
Yes,
Jamie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Okay, so just so to avoid emails tomorrow, this is not approved. This is the host community agreement, the next step of this process is the permitting and special permitting process with the planning board. So, and then the Cannabis Control Commission has to approve all of this as well. So this is just the host community agreement. They've done the community outreach hearing, the first 2 steps. Now they got to go to the planning board. There's many more hurdles for them to go through. So this isn't a green light to start growing marijuana at those facilities.
Are you growing it behind you?
This?
No. Oh, okay.
Fake. Yeah.
Do we know the approximate time frame? Do we think it's like 6 months? I mean, if that question might come up. So from this point, you just said it, which is we're not there yet by any means, and there's a longish process, and I know that can vary based on how things go. But is it? What would you bound it? Would you say 6 months away?
So I can say that the planning board is ready to take this up. So that should, their part should be done fairly, I wouldn't say quickly, but they're going to take it up quickly. And then everything is ground to a halt at the state level. So in a normal world, yes, but in the COVID world, right before the COVID pandemic started really impacting Massachusetts, they were adding folks to the CCC in order to get these done faster. So once this cloud lifts, so to speak, I think it'll move, but I don't think it'll be anytime soon.
Yeah, because one of the things the planning board would have to do is have a public hearing, correct?
Which is a big sticking point in terms of all their public hearings to include any bylaw changes, et cetera. So we're still
Right.
getting interpretations there.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. I think we've done everything exactly by the book. As simple as that. We've said that since the beginning. It's been a long process. So we've, I think, done everything we could to ask the right questions and do the best we can for the town.
All right.
Moving on, next item of business, 4E, which is setting the upcoming board of selectmen meeting and hearing schedule. We talked a little bit about this before.
So looking to see how often the board wants to meet like this. There's some towns that are doing it every week and just keeping it really short. There's some that are doing it every other week, keeping a medium, and then looking for guidance from you on, do you want to do a public budget hearing this way? And some of the other items you normally do, like a road maintenance, I wouldn't call it a hearing, but a meeting, trying to bring the public in. So those are things that we were planning to do that are now on hold. So just like the board to discuss and give me some guidance on, we driving forward with that stuff, or how do you want it to look?
I think every other week's fine. I mean, I think we're doing all right. I think some of that stuff, I think we get through another 1 or 2 of these, we can sort of readdress whether we have single purpose meetings such as the roads, which I think is a good idea anyway, especially if we're ever thinking about trying to put the matching override, for lack of a better way to put it, back on there for people to consider again. So it seems to me like every couple weeks is a good idea, and making no other real plans. Anyone else have any opinion?
Laurie mentioned one thing. Obviously, everything's dependent on the COVID, what happens next, but that we might have to have back-to-back meetings in May anyway for whatever comes before us at that time. You remember that? She said that?
No,
Yes.
I guess, yeah, no, assuming that, but just from a regular schedule standpoint. So if there's anything we got to do there, of course, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
Anything?
based
Go.
on this, I would be scheduling a road presentation and hearing on the 27th. That would be your next meeting. So it's actually 3 weeks from now, not 2. If you wanted to do that, or we can do it 2 weeks from here. I'm not trying to overthink it, but
So I thought we had a meeting on the 20th.
let's just say for ease, every 2 weeks starting from here, which I think is the current schedule.
Okay.
Oh, I have to let Jamie back in, sorry. I didn't kick him out.
So you said 2 weeks from here, so that means the 20th, right? Not the
Yes.
27th? Okay.
The 20th. I'll send you a new calendar.
Okay.
I think we're going to have to be flexible anyway, the way things keep changing daily and weekly, with this COVID thing, who knows what we're gonna have to have a meeting for, unfortunately.
Okay. And the board's ready to have a larger crowd here, road meeting, a public budget hearing, those things should continue.
Yeah,
Just don't want to surprise you with something big in this type of medium.
I think we're just gonna have to deal with it, you know, I mean, and you know, if we have to readjust after that, but we've gotta, who knows how it's gonna go. I think trying to make it perfect is just not possible. So I think we just try to deal with it.
Okay, got it. I have my guidance.
Okay, we're now at old business. We have, we're up to the fiscal year 21 budget discussion. So where do you want to take us on that? We have, we don't have anything in our packet on this, right?
So there's no discussions to be had here, but I
All
just wanted to, or no votes, I should say. Discussion certainly welcome. I did want to talk about, or start to get the board to think about what priorities they want in terms of the FY21 budget for the following reasons. Although I do believe that we can get through the FY20 as we plan to, because we've already collected most of our revenue. Our expenditures will be less than we thought, except for in those areas that we identified. We had a good year with snow and ice, knock on wood, that nothing else happens. But FY21 is going to look drastically different. So the state is meeting this week, and we should get more information from that, from our delegation, about moving down the revenue projections that it built the governor's budget, which wasn't that nice to us to begin with. In our local receipts, which were conservative, we still won't hit that conservative number in any type of world like this, or any type of world recovering from this, which means we have less revenue to work with than we had. We were already in a bad spot. We're going to have to address that from our side. And of course, we still haven't had the schools, restart their budget process as well. So this isn't a doom and gloom message, but we will have to make some decisions on where we want to go with this budget. How comfortable are we projecting revenues at all in terms of conservative levels, and whether or not we want to fill this problem gap with one-time revenues, or if we want to cut down to a new level. So happy to have any discussion on that, but I just wanted to start that conversation because it's going to ramp up in the next 2 meetings.
So we, not complain is the wrong word. We are dealt the hand of, I'm just making up numbers to make it easier to talk about. 95% residential, 5% business, right? I know there's some agriculture and those numbers aren't quite right. If we were 50-50 or something, I can't even imagine how awful that would be. So it actually is a blessing to have. I know it's not perfect, but we're, I think, a little bit luckier than some municipalities are going to be going through with such a big hit to business. Nothing else on the budget for me. Anybody else want to bring anything else up in the budget?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, that's more to come. So we're up to the TA report. You want to give us the rundown?
Yeah, let me call that up here quickly. Okay, we talked again at length about the COVID-19 information and response. Just directing people to the website. There's a lot of information there. People are looking for updated information. We post it every single day, so it's a good resource for folks. Our department report. So our staff is working remotely for the most part, but still finding innovative ways to continue resident services. So many residents have told me that they feel like the town hall is still open, which is a good comment. And any concerns they've had, we've tried to redirect through messaging and others to get them an expectation of when their questions would be answered, and we're meeting those expectations. So also, next meeting, you'll get a report from me on long-term project plans and what people are doing with their non-commuting time, et cetera, at home. So I will be giving you a list of things that we're trying to accomplish as a staff, given this new world and our ability to do some longer term thinking, working from a remote place.
And Ryan, I know I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I did comment to you and on how good this year's monthly report was. It's almost like people had some time on their hands to really contribute, because it was really thorough.
Yeah, and we're trying to, the quantity for sure, people can't come to town hall. That's terrible. It's not how town halls are supposed to run, but the quality that each person's getting is high. I think people are really engaged. The staff is happy to be working and helpful and distracted. So I think we'll see some good come out of this. And honestly, looking from a macro level, this is going to change the way government does business. DocuSign was something that everybody kind of laughed about in my peer circles, and now they're like, everybody's on DocuSign because it's the only way you can do things. So I think there's going to be some significant changes in local government that come from this. Some things that we were already doing. So then I talked about virtual story time. It's been a big success. Some of the remote inspections being done. So we're brainstorming. We're meeting every week and having remote staff meetings of what we can do to continue to make sure that everybody's taken care of. Drive through, as you heard Lori saying, drive through or drive up nomination papers, not something we were thinking about 3 weeks ago. So on financial management, we made it through a payroll and check warranting process virtually, which is no small thing. Thank you to Sandy and for everyone who worked to get that done. And Kelly, our town accountant. So it's not so easy when you can't turn in pieces of paper, but everybody came through and we had an efficient process. It was something we were targeting as a metric of whether or not we'd be successful here. We talked about state aid revenue and adjusting the budget, so I won't go through that again. You will get my Q3 financial report, which will be the last nice report you get on the budget for a while, but I will make sure I do some analysis and some interpretation of where we're going, because it'll look like everything's fine since that closed on March 31st. In terms of infrastructure updates, got some reports. Travis and I talked to the state today. We do expect Gardner Road North, which is state funded, and the Chapter 90, the Flag Road project from the report last year, to begin on time. We expect to start seeing those projects in May. May for Gardner Road. And then for the Chapter 91, as soon as we have town meeting, that one will be ready to go.
Let me just jump in real quick. So a lot of you may have seen next to the pallet land there's a bunch of cones and barrels and traffic signs and signboards and all that sort of stuff that was dropped there recently. So that's all getting ready for that work.
Yeah, a lot of that transportation money is I don't want to say pre-spent, but it is available. It's not something you can just move to a different, much like us, we don't use one-time expenses to cover operational issues. So I don't expect a lot of delay with those projects in FY20 and 21. Moving forward, you might see some differences, but
that was all encumbered. So that's across the state for all the different departments. It's the same, but going from there is scary.
yes. So we'll have more on that. They don't even know what they're doing with that. So we're not behind there. The low library roof project, past inspection, new roof, new skylight. That's not leaking. It's nice. You can see the sky if you want to go. Well, you can't visit town hall, but if you could, you'd know I was right. And then we are continuing with Department of DOER MVP and Green Community grants. So these are all grants that are separate projects, but we're combining them to attack some of our short-term and long-term projects like culverts, building upgrades, and energy efficient solutions to try and save some money and get some capital done. We're combining all of these things into one. DOER is a culvert engineering grant. MVP is vulnerability project we're working on. A lot of culverts, flooding, and energy efficiencies, and green communities, all energy efficiency. So putting all that together into one piece. And then lastly, just give me a father's timeout for 1 second. Good night. Good night. Love you guys. Okay. For employee recognition, I'd like to recognize town custodian Jerry Parker for his efforts. He's working there all the time, and he's not necessarily a known name because he doesn't come before the board, et cetera. But since the start of the outbreak, he's been laser focused on helping wherever he can, doing touch points, other hazard areas, library, town offices, police, DPW. He works in combination with our deep cleaning and is now working. It's a pretty big exposure to be cleaning all the things that everybody's touching. So I just wanted to call out Jerry, say few have stood out and stepped up more than him during this time period. And I know I'm thankful for him, and I know the staff is thankful for the work he's doing for them. So that is my report.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're moving on. So we have policies to review is next. So item 7, and we do have a few of these. So I guess one of them was police and the other was facility use. Is that right?
Town facility use, and then there's 6. The police chief is required to notify you and to take your comments on these before he implements a new policy. So given to you about a month ago, just looking to see if you're ready to acknowledge that you received them, or if you want to take more of a peek at them and approve them later. It's up to the board.
I'm ready. You guys ready?
If I can make one comment from what you had indicated, Ryan, in your email on this, and after I read it, I agreed with you. You were saying in terms of fees, you thought it would be good if we could not charge any fees, since there are so few areas and places that people in this town can meet. And I totally agree with that, and I hope to see that be part of the policy.
Okay, and that the town facility use is the other policy. So this is a policy that either hasn't been updated in a while or is not modernized, that would guide people in their use of our parks, of our buildings, of everything that's used for legal purposes. We should have a good policy, but also the discussion on fees and usage. And I did make the recommendation that there's not a lot of places to gather in Hubbardston when we can gather.
I totally agree. Yep.
All right, so we will get to that in one sec, but we were on the police one before that. So can we just see if there's any comments anyone has on the policies we received from the police, and whether or not you guys are ready to vote on those? Okay, does anyone want to make a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to accept and approve the new police policies as presented, I believe, by the chief of police.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? No? Dan? Yes? Jeff?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous. Okay, now we've got the use policy. If anyone wants to make a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the use of the town facilities policy as presented.
Okay.
Just one question. I'd like to second the motion, but does that include not charging people fees for the use of the facilities?
Well, so we'll take that as a second, and then we're in discussion. So there's the question and discussion. Pat, or I guess while we're in discussion, before we talk about any amendments, Ryan, would that would that need an amendment to the motion to modify, or are we clear enough? Can't hear you.
I'm going to call it up here because there's one more point to talk about. So this does not include any fees. Fees would be something you could add on. It's not something you charge now, so I'm just recommending that we continue that. One thing in here, just to note, the loud noise prohibition is from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. That's not a problem right now, but it's just something to note if the board was interested in that. This puts the cost of cleaning on others to limit our costs, of course. And right now, you do not allow alcoholic beverages in any town buildings. Legal counsel did say that some people do for certain events. So that's up to the board. If you wanted to change that, it does not have to be done tonight, but something to consider. And that's it. To answer Jeff's question, there is no fee right now that we know of.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like there's any amendments necessary there. So is there any further discussion? None? Okay, we'll take a vote. Dan? Yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Chris?
Yeah.
Pat?
Yeah.
Jamie?
Yep.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have one appointment / resignation. We have Mary Terigny on the Finance Committee, who we understand is willing to step up for at least a short period of time here and sort of test the waters, and see whether or not it's something that maybe she'd run for in the next election.
Yeah, Maria said she was interested. We told her all about the Finance Committee. She was still interested. She came to the last Finance Committee meeting, sat through everything, and received a unanimous recommendation from the Finance Committee for an appointment up to the next election. If she wanted to continue past that and the board appointed her tonight, she'd have to run.
I'll make a motion to accept the appointment of, what's the name, Maria? What's the last name?
Terigny?
Maria Terigny.
To accept the appointment of the Maria Terigny to the Finance Committee up to the next election.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Dan, yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Chris? You wave, Chris?
He looks frozen.
Okay,
Oh, he's back.
that's yes.
Aye.
He's an aye. Pat?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Unanimous. Okay, we do not have a wage authorization, correct, Ryan? So we'll move on to some minutes. So we have the February 3rd minutes. Dan, Jeff, Chris, and Jamie were there. Pat was not.
I'll make the motion. Then what was the date?
February 3rd. February 3rd.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the Board of Selectmen meeting for February 3rd, 2020.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? Dan, yes. Jeff,
Yes.
Chris? Frozen again.
Oh, he's back.
Aye.
Jamie?
Yes, sir.
Pat?
Dan.
Abstain. Okay, thank you. All right, so our next, so was March 2nd. Our March 2nd meeting. Member present were Jeff, Pat, and Jamie. Dan and Chris were not there.
I'll make the motion to accept the Board of Selectmen meetings for March, what was it? The
Second,
20th?
it's 2.
March 2nd, excuse me.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Okay, Dan abstain. Jeff,
Yes.
Chris, Pat,
Yes.
and Jamie.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And we have one more, and this would be March 25th.
Bobby, did that one make it in?
No,
It didn't.
Okay.
Okay, we'll push that
We'll
off.
have that next.
couldn't get it loaded, sorry.
It's fine. Sounds good. Item 11, committee updates, Town Center Committee. We have nothing. Last time I guys gave you guys an update on the public hearing and Town Center Committee meeting. So we're moving along there. I guess I will say a little bit. We still have had, so they've got TEC, our engineering consultant, which, you know, has a fair amount of money of ours to work with right now because we did authorize half of the final amount necessary at special town meeting. They've been coordinating with Ryan and I on access to do some borings, which are, you know, drilled investigations into the ground for structural reasons to put retaining walls and other stuff. So they're really moving along on their design, and it's all good. So nothing else to report there. Item 12 is matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I don't have anything. Go ahead, Ryan.
I have one, and if the board's not comfortable voting this right now, I understand. It just came to me today. It's not controversial, but Travis has been doing a good job organizing the extra stuff we have that we might sell for money, hopefully. A couple of these are known and a couple of them aren't, so I've shared the screen with you. These two trucks were replaced this year by the Oshkosh vehicle that was delivered. So the 97 and the 98 Fords. The 2013 Ford Taurus was a cruiser that was replaced this year. 2005 Chevy Malibu Max. It's not as bad as it sounds. It was used to investigate drugs, not a drug car. The old Canon printer model D1350 is a printer we no longer need. 2 desks, a filing cabinet, and 2 computer monitors. So we would be selling these. The guy that comes and takes pictures and advertises these locally for people who may want to buy them. So the process here would be if the board wants to declare these surplus and sell them, then we could. There is no staff members that want any of this equipment. We've asked our departments and staff, and it's not necessary.
Ryan, what about municipal bid for the trucks?
I believe that's where it would be going.
Okay. In the
we would be
car, yeah.
Hey Ryan, what does it cost us? What kind of percentage or cut does this company take from
Can't hear you.
the sale of these goods?
I couldn't hear what Chris said.
You just said what kind of percent or cut does the third party get?
So I'm trying to stop the screen share here. It's my understanding that we wouldn't take on any of these costs, that it gets passed on to the buyer. But if that's not true, I'll bring it back to the board.
Yeah, I just would want to make sure that it goes through municipal bid,
Yeah.
you know, on the online auction tool where it just goes across the country, and anybody that you know, out there wants it can bid on it, not just local.
We're not going to pay to get rid of stuff. So
Okay, we're not ready then, clearly.
okay, I'll bring it back to the next meeting with more information.
Okay, thanks. Okay, anybody else? Matters not reasonably anticipated? No?
Question for Ryan. Ryan, this is mainly for me. Are you going to be in the office any day this week?
I'm definitely in tomorrow. Past that, I'm not sure, but tomorrow I will be in Hubbardston.
Could I stop in briefly in the morning?
I'd love to see you. 6 feet away.
Okay, thank you. Yep, thank you.
Okay. Anything else from anybody?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with Ryan about that. Several meetings ago, a gentleman came about some damage to the road. Did we ever land on what the resolution of that was going to be? I guess his excavator made some marks on one of the roads in town, and we were talking about sending him a fine, or if we should send him a fine, or where we stand with that.
Yeah, I can give an update on that. So where we ended up is we did talk to council about, the board had asked, do we have the ability to serve as an appeal board or to lessen the punishment based off of our bylaws and the regulations? And the answer we got was no. Because of the way our regulations and bylaws are written, the DPW director has one option, to fine or not, and there's no ability to appeal that. So Travis was asking the board for some relief on that because he feels like that's not a fair process. So we were advised to either ask the applicant if they are willing to accept less of a fine, enforce the fine, or change our bylaw.
Okay, did we do any of those?
That's up to the board. What I did, there is going to be a recommendation to change that bylaw in our town meeting warrant that you'll see. I did reach out to the finee, is that how you would say that? And asked if they would be willing to pay less of a fine, and I have not heard back. And other than that, we can stringently enforce the fee or wait until there's a what the board was calling a more fair process.
Yeah, I thought we were just gonna wait a little bit longer.
Yep.
Okay.
So, all right. Okay, anything else from anyone else? And did anyone pop in, public or press, and they have any questions? Ryan, did you get anything?
Let me see. Nope.
No. All right, well, I believe just the way he just looks spatially right now, he should probably make the motion to adjourn. Oh, James.
Oh, adjourn.
Is there a second?
Oh, gee.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, Dan? Yes, Jeff?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Dewdrop?